Hello again. Welcome to another episode of RPM Flows with Dr. G. Today's episode will cover how we move through life utilizing spiritual resilience. And this spiritual resilience will help us move through life with resilience, with purpose, with meaning, as well as fun, love, oneness, wonderment, and the synchronicity of these themes or elements. So today we'll talk about what spiritual resilience is, how to cultivate it, excuse me, and why it might be one of our most important tools or elements to navigate today's overwhelming world. So first, let's talk about what is spiritual resilience. It is our capacity to maintain inner peace, purpose, and meaning in the face of adversity, suffering, or uncertainty. It's that quiet strength here in your heart, in your soul, that helps us stay rooted when everything around us feels chaotic. I myself, knowing how much of an empath I am and I feel the energy of others around me, have noticed a lot of extra tension, vibration around me, whether it's working with patients or I'm walking through the grocery store. Wherever there are a lot of people, I tend to feel it, and it sometimes can feel very overwhelming. And psychologist Robert Wicks calls spiritual resilience the ability to bounce back from stress while holding on to a deep sense of meaning, calmness, and compassion. And I really like that definition because I like the compassion part of that, because I do believe that anyone who does help others, especially in this day and age, we do have to have compassion for others, but also for ourselves. And I think spiritual resilience can give us some keys on how to do that for ourselves. That doesn't mean we avoid pain and suffering. It means we transcend it with a grounded awareness that we are a part of something deeper, something enduring, and something sacred. Maybe what is, when we pull all the layers back on love, what is at the heart, what is at the foundation of love. So what are some elements of spiritual resilience? What builds spiritual resilience? Let's talk about a few foundational elements. That could be connection to a higher power or greater meaning, whether that's God, nature, the universe, or simply love. This connection grounds us as humans and connects us. Faith practices is another way, another element, through meditation, through prayer, mindfulness, or silence. These cultivate spiritual strength for us. So, in addition, community and service. So, spiritual resilience thrives when we uplift others and allow ourselves to be uplifted. And I think many of us forget the second part of that. We're quick to run and help and give aid or lend a listening ear or support others who may be struggling or suffering, but forget that we also have to recharge and replenish our emotional and spiritual wells. So, and that's something that I've struggled in the past, and I try to be more mindful of it nowadays, so that I don't just take everything that I listen to and try to process and empathize with from all the different narratives and stories and experiences that I encounter on a daily basis, and just, hold it in and pack it down tight. I used to do that, and thus I've learned to be more mindful, be more spiritual resilient, so I don't just hold on to that, because then I won't be good for anyone over time. It would just sit there and fester and create more anxiety and probably panic and maybe even worse type of internal suffering, internal chaos, which is the opposite of inner peace. And then reflection and acceptance. As Buddha taught, you only lose what you cling to. So if you've listened to other episodes, one of the common themes that I like to weave is this idea of attachment. So when we are able to unattach or disattach from thoughts, from emotions, from people, from things, from past memories or traumas, or even future potentialities, then we can be more present and more mindful right here, right now, being where our feet are. And let's not forget what Charlotte Gettle shares in her book, Spiritual Resilience. You build spiritual muscle by choosing trust when doubt is easier, peace when anxiety knocks, and love when fear screams. Some additional wisdom from other authors and experts on this theme. Spiritual resilience is spoken about across traditions and cultures. So I had the fortune of hearing Bishop T.D. Jakes speak at our church last week, and he inspired me to start to make some notes and write down about what is it that we need to do during this sort of chaotic and very uncertain time, dark chapter in our nation's present times. And he talked about faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith is not logical, it is spiritual. But he also talked about during the sermon that we do have to wrestle with ourselves to get to that inner authentic self. We have to wrestle with the noise, expectations, people who maybe make demands on us. But ultimately, the hardest person you have to wrestle with is yourself. And that as you learn to stop wrestling with yourself and start to tune out that noise, the expectations, the demands, I think it's easier then to listen to that inner spiritual voice that's more authentic to who you are. And then our pastor Stephen Furtick at Elevation reminds us that God often allows us to go through storms, not to destroy us, but to develop something in us that calm waters never could. And so when I think about that as well, these teachings really challenge us to see difficulty as a spiritual gym, if you will, a place where our soul lifts the weight of doubt, fear, and weariness and grows stronger for it. And in essence, part of what another takeaway from this past week that I took away from from my service was that to be transformed is to eliminate the contamination of our history. And, that's a very powerful image. And I think by having faith, by being mindful, by practicing being in silence, we can start to slowly release and let go of some of that contamination that we've experienced or suffered through in our past. And then for this episode, our Find Your Flow moment is talking about the emotional toll of living in our current world. With such political division, violence, climate anxiety and uncertainty, flooding happening in very sudden and unexpected places, and we're surrounded by this constant noise and suffering, both nationally and globally. So how do we stay grounded? How do we choose inner sanctuary over emotional exhaustion? Okay. So here are some ways to do so. To take a daily sacred pause where for 5 minutes we set a timer and just sit in silence. So let's take maybe 30 seconds to sit in silence right now. You can close your eyes like I'm going to, or you don't have to, but let's just embrace the silence for about 30 seconds now. So even with just that 30 seconds, I feel a little bit of cleansing happening internally. So maybe that's all you can do throughout the day. Every couple of hours, take a 30-second silence cleanse, if you will. Next, you can do gratitude ritual, which is something I'm very big on, and I tell just about everybody. Focus on what you're thankful for, what you're grateful for. Before bed, write down those things, that maybe the things that you're grateful for that occurred that day or more recently, no matter how small they are. And this shifts your nervous system from stress to spiritual awareness. So I believe it takes you to like a higher form of existence, like the spiritual plane that some of us maybe don't really tap into in our lifetimes. But with gratitude, I think you can get much closer to it every day. Then a service challenge. Each week perform one act of service. So maybe calling a loved one that you haven't spoken to in a while, donating to a cause. For example, I do some gifting to my church, but I also donate to some other organizations in the local community, and organizations like Heifer International, which help give resources and sustainable funds to families and children around the world. But that there's a great feeling that the giving creates this spiritual energy that it's like an infinity loop. As you give, it kind of comes back, and as you keep giving, it keeps coming back, and that's how you create a sense of a spiritual prosperity as well, and balance. All right, limiting the noise. So maybe doing a 30-minute media detox every day, where you pick one time a day where you disconnect from all media, turning off the phone, turning off your laptops, using that time to walk, to pray, meditate, or just simply breathe and be in the silence. Your soul will thank you. And then spiritual readings, 10 minutes per day. Pick up a sacred or inspirational text, whether that's the Bible, the Tao Te Ching, or something else like Robert Wick's Riding the Dragon. Finding ways to feed your spirit the way you feed your body. Okay? So, as far as closing reflections, spiritual resilience isn't something we find, it's something we build over time. It's cultivated in silence, in struggle, in surrender. And when we make it a practice, bit by bit, day by day, we become more than just survivors. We become guiding lights in a world that desperately needs healing. And as always, flow with grace, with trust, and with knowing that resilience, purpose, meaning, fun, love, oneness, wonderment, and the synchronicity of all these themes are your birthright. So let me leave you with a question to ponder, okay? What do you believe you need to release in order to restore your inner peace? So I'll repeat that. What do you need to release in order to restore your inner peace? So once again, I thank you for visiting with me again. Today's topic was about spiritual resilience. I'm Dr. G, and this has been RPM Flows with Dr. G. And until next time, stay grounded, stay grateful, keep flowing. And remember, let your life's flow be purposeful and free on RPM Flows with Dr. G. Peace to you and everyone, and inner peace. I will pray and bless you with that. I honor and salute the divinity in everyone who's listening to this. Thank you. Adios for now.